U.S. Air Force A-10s just joined Saudi fighter jets in a joint attack over Iraq, marking not only a huge escalation from Saudi Arabia, but the return of A-10 strikes as well. Plus, the Air Force's most secretive new aircraft arrives in the Middle East just as Iranian ballistic missiles rain down on Jordan, all while back home, Anduril's Fury drone surpasses its biggest milestone yet. I'm Thomas Mott, this is MachSquawk. Well, just when all the focus was on the latest Iranian ballistic missile attack over Jordan, the U.S. was conducting its own counterattack on Iranian-backed forces in Iraq with the help of Saudi Arabia. As late last night, CENTCOM released a statement that said, quote, U.S. Central Command and the Saudi Arabian Armed Forces conducted precision strikes in Iraq, July 28th, against Iran-aligned terrorists in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, directed to attack U.S. forces and Saudi energy infrastructure. U.S. and Saudi fighter aircraft struck multiple terrorist logistics and weapon sites across eastern Iraq in a strong response to the over 30 IRGC-directed aerial drone attacks in the last 72 hours. And while further details are few and far between, CENTCOM did give us a little bit of a hint as to exactly what, specifically aircraft, were involved in the attack. As not only was this the first publicly announced U.S. Saudi joint strike of the current conflict, and more on that in a second, it's a big deal, but it does appear A-10s were once again used over the less dangerous skies of Iraq, with CENTCOM's Twitter account posting the aforementioned public statement showcasing an A-10 Warthog preparing to tank with potentially a KC-135. And when you pair that with the fact that it was U.S. and Saudi aircraft that carried out the strike, the likelihood of Warthogs taking part is not a stretch by any means. And this really goes hand in hand with what we've known about A-10 strikes so far during Operation Epic Fury. Back in April, CENTCOM doubled its number of A-10s in the region, keeping the older attack aircraft in relatively safer mission areas, mostly over Iraq, to hunt down Iranian-backed proxies while staying far away from the heavily SAM-contested airspaces over Iran. With Warthogs doing what Warthogs have done best for many decades, right? They were helping coalition forces, providing air cover, close air support, and obviously hunting maritime fast attack boats as well. Oh, and also providing CSAR for multiple combat search and rescue missions of downed U.S. pilots. You've heard all the stories earlier on in the campaign. But then, of course, one A-10 was shot down itself, likely not confirmed by an Iranian surface-to-air missile. Since that instance, reports of Warthogs performing any sort of missions, even though they still were, definitely slowed in the media, with a few even returning back home to the U.S. during the original ceasefire. But of course, as we know, not every single A-10 actually did return during that initial wave of returning jets a couple of weeks ago, and now we're getting our fresh look at a brand new strike against Iran, this time in Iraq, with Saudi's help. Which, by the way, in and of itself, it's a massive deal because Saudi is no longer simply allowing U.S. aircraft to use Saudi bases or airspace. They have now joined the fight, at least helping to hit the proxies responsible for the wave of drone attacks seen in the region for months now. While we don't know exactly what Saudi aircraft were used in this mission, they do famously fly the F-15 Strike Eagles as well as the Eurofighter Typhoons bought from Europe, both of which were fully capable and are fully capable to hit these kind of targets on the ground. Simply from an aviation perspective, it's fascinating to see reports like this. How do the A-10 Warthogs integrate with these Saudi Strike Eagles, the Saudi Typhoons? Were other jets used as well? It is a massive, massive storyline just from an aviation perspective, but also from a political perspective as well. Because really, the question will now move to just how involved will Saudi Arabia continue to be? Will this be a one-time joint strike to take out drone facilities and nothing more? Or is it the start of something even bigger? Time, of course, will tell. Which, by the way, speaking of something bigger, we talked a lot this past week about the shortages, the leak from the Pentagon on Patriot missile interceptors. It was a massive storyline all throughout the world, and yet a brand new Iranian ballistic missile attack just happened over Jordan, but apparently we had enough Patriots to stop that one. As you've probably seen the reports by now, but Iran just launched a wave of ballistic missile attacks at a U.S. base in Jordan, with U.S. CENTCOM not only confirming the launch, but claiming that every single missile was successfully intercepted, which comes just days after a Pentagon leak went viral, which claimed U.S. Patriot missile stockpiles were running low, hinting that American interceptor capabilities were letting some Iranian missiles through due to sheer volume and logistics. And of course, all of this is unverifiable, a lot of anonymous sourcing, but it is very interesting that you have this whole report about a lack of Patriot missiles, then you have a brand new ballistic missile attack on a U.S. base in Jordan, and it was completely stopped, and so we're not out of Patriot interceptors yet. The question, of course, now lies with the U.S. response to all of this. Just 10 hours before the IRGC missile launch, President Trump confirmed that if Iran were to refuse the latest deal on the table, the U.S. could strike power plants and key bridges inside Iran. A threat that we've technically heard for days and weeks now, but U.S. forces haven't officially acted on. Again, for now. As always, I'll keep covering all the latest aviation news, everything going on in Iran on this channel. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe. What do you think's going to happen, though? Is there going to be a further escalation? Is someone going to back down? Do they come back to the table? Do we hit bigger targets? Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, one thing we do know for sure is the arrival of perhaps the most secretive and rare military aircraft in the U.S. arsenal now to the Middle East, as two confirmed EA-37B Compass Calls arrived in the UK earlier this week en route to an unknown destination in the desert, adding on to what was its first ever operational deployment anywhere in the world when the first Compass Calls reportedly participated in Operation Epic Fury. And if you don't know anything about these Compass Calls and the electronic warfare mission, let me just explain to you, this is a very, very big deal. The EA-37 is the modern replacement for the EC-130H. Instead of a slower C-130 turboprop, it's built on a Gulfstream G550 business jet, giving it a much better overall speed along with higher altitude and range. And the fact that we brought back these things to the desert right on the eve of potentially a major escalation in Iran, it cannot be overlooked, and yet a lot of people are missing it. The Compass Call's primary mission is to attack the enemy's electromagnetic spectrum, aka disrupting military radios, command and control networks, radar systems, drone control links, and maybe most importantly, air defense communications. Essentially, instead of blowing up military radar sites or blowing up military SAM sites, the Compass Call can disable them, potentially make them completely non-existent without dropping a single bomb. When an E-37 is in the air, the odds of interfering with Iranian transmissions grows exponentially, potentially delaying missile launches and degrading or stopping drone effectiveness outright, a very, very important detail. But it also goes without saying that Compass Call, it's not going to operate alone. It will be a part of a much larger strike package. Again, while we're talking about this, potentially with bigger strikes on the horizon, it would be an entire strike package that includes an AWACS, that includes tankers, that includes 4th generation fighters, 5th generation fighters, all working together with the Compass Call providing a lot of defense. As it stands right now, this latest attack from Iran does make us have to sit back and wonder, what is about to happen next? A-10 Warthogs are paired with Saudi fighters to strike Iranian-backed targets in Iraq. A lot is going on. As usual, I'll cover it all here in the channel. Be sure to go ahead and subscribe. We're almost to 15,000 subs. Now, flying from the desert of the Middle East to the desert in Nevada, the U.S. military confirmed earlier this week that an unmanned collaborative combat aircraft officially flew in a combat-style operation alongside manned units for the very first time, with Nellis Air Force Base putting out a press conference release saying, quote, "The multi-day event was a critical step in moving the uncrewed, force-multiplying aircraft from sterile test environments into the hands of warfighters. The exercise was designed with the primary goal of building the foundational tactics, techniques, and procedures that will define how CCA are integrated into the force. Throughout the exercise, the Experimental Operations Unit, the Air Force's designated unit for developing CCA employment concepts, generated multiple sorties demonstrating reliability and extended range, integrated with manned platforms in the local airspace to project power across distributed battlefields, and simulated scenarios that will inform future requirements for the platform." And all of that is a massive deal. We'll talk about it in a second, but a lot of people are wondering, what CCA drone are they actually talking about? They didn't name the actual drone that was used in the flight, and yet they give us a lot of hints. I think we know which one. And the first clue might be the fact that the U.S. press release did show a picture of the Anduril-built YFQ-44A, with the other fact being that Anduril themselves posted on social media a picture of their Fury CCA drone arriving at Creech back on July 20th. So, safe to say it was likely the Anduril Fury, not confirmed, but my best guess is it was Anduril that got this first combat test, because the fact that Fury is taking part in real-world combat exercises means this program is potentially ahead of schedule, as the Air Force is moving from engineering test flights to operational employment. Meaning the real focus right now is not just whether or not these drones can fly, it's more about how well they can fly alongside their manned counterparts and perform the critical mission in combat testing environments they were designed to do. Now, officially back to Iran, one more quick story here. This one's fascinating. Apparently, Iran is set to receive up to 400 Chinese imported manned pads, with a Reuters exclusive citing 3 anonymous sources familiar with the deal, basically saying, even though China and Iran have not publicly confirmed, that Iran is expected to receive 300 to 400 Chinese-made manned pads within the next few weeks, on a deal reportedly worth between $60 and $70 million, and will include the Chinese QW-12 and FN-16. All of which, allegedly, according to Reuters, was done through a Hong Kong-based intermediary rather than directly through the Chinese government. And this is obviously a massive deal. And they're not going to say the Chinese government officially did it, but it sure sounds like they were a part of this, again, all allegedly. But it helps fill the gaps right now and what Iranians' overall surface-to-air threat has been in this overall conflict. Much of Iran's existing integrated air defense networks have focused on medium-altitude threats, high-altitude aircraft, and ballistic missile defense, which was in turn much less effective against helicopters, drones, and aircraft operating at low altitude. Although, of course, the original report on the downed F-15 Strike Eagle, the famous one with the pilot who we went ahead and rescued, was that he was shot down flying at low altitude by a Chinese manpad. That has since been refuted, but it was still a very, very relevant story, saying the manpads are the ones that are able to hit these low-flying aircraft versus a lot of the ballistic missiles and the surface-to-air missiles that the U.S. forces had taken out earlier in the campaign. And manpads, of course, standing for Manned Portable Air Defense Systems, make it so much easier for Iran to shoot at targets. It takes one soldier, one launcher, and one infrared guided missile. And these new ones from China, like the QW-12, is extremely capable. It's an infrared seeker, it's fire and forget, and it can engage against heavily maneuvering aircraft. All of this, of course, is a massive deal, but there is one final question I'll leave you with here. This shipment has not officially gotten to Iran, at least according to Reuters. And so the question is, if we know about it, if it's been leaked to the United States and leaked to the public via a news outlet like Reuters, obviously intelligence systems know, the United States knows it. Can they intercept this shipment? That'll certainly be something to watch. I'll keep it covered here on the channel. Now, of course, plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks. We just talked about a ton of Iran stuff. The channel is also focused on U.S. aviation in general, all the news coming out of the United States. We'll cover it all here. Approaching 15,000 subs, which is nuts. You guys have been so supportive of this channel. If you like the show, drop a like, leave a hype, give me a comment down below your thoughts. I'm Thomas Mott, though, almost the weekend. This has been MachSquawk.